Hello, everybody. Now, we recently received some pretty exciting news. That news being potential spoilers for upcoming characters and potential stages for Marvel Tokon. And this is due to a post on a website that put up the game and in the description revealed not only a couple of characters that are potentially going to be in the game, but also some stages. And this carries some more weight, especially because that post has now been taken down. It was available prior to me setting up to record this video, but now links to it, such as the one Rufomonger provided in his video, don't seem to work anymore. And what does that tell us? That those leaks were potentially true. And thus, the website was forced to take it down because it was indeed true spoilers. But until we get the official release of these characters and stages, it's still up for speculation. But there's a strong case that what we were shown was indeed true, and I will show you what that description was momentarily. But before that, this roster prediction has a few guidelines it's going to be following. Not only will I be following the information we recently received, but I'll also be basing the predictions off of previous information given to us by the devs. The first piece of information being how they're going about picking the characters, which they state to be will be characters that feel to be the face of Marvel, at the same time selecting characters that would give a balance of battle types and styles, and lastly sprinkling in a few surprises and leave room for characters who have never been playable before in a fighting game. The second piece of dev info we will also be following is that heroes and villains will join forces in an epic yet chaotic crossover of Marvel characters. Further solidified by Yamanaka here, saying he can't reveal specifics, but each character has their own lore backstories. And as for why heroes and villains can team up, we'll have to share in the future updates. Now, we already have a good idea of why heroes and villains are teaming up, which was given to us in the story teaser we got during the Unbreakable X-Men trailer. Let's go take a look at that real quick. So as we saw Chandelar was being devastated by some mysterious figure here. A lot of people speculating it to be the champion, was not only devastating the residents, but annihilating the planet itself. Which is more than enough reason for heroes and villains to team up to protect the planet Earth. I mean, it shows itself there. If the threat is devastating enough to not only wipe out the residents of Chandelar, the Shi'ar homeworld, and also beating the Gladiator, who is known to be one of the strongest characters in Marvel Comics, and anybody who can defeat him is definitely a big threat. Which, as I stated before, is more than enough reason for heroes and villains to team up. Now, with those ground rules and dev info gone over, let's get straight to developing these teams. Ah yes, that leads us to the potential spoiled characters. Now here is your chance to click off if you don't want to know who these characters could be and you want to be completely surprised when they reveal whoever's coming up next. That is your spoiler warning. But now, let's dive in to those leaks. Our first big leaks are potential characters. Now keep in mind, this was also a post that has now been taken down, giving slightly more validity to this being true. But until they're officially revealed, still speculation. But if it is true, that means we're getting not only Scarlet Witch, but Magneto, which I know a lot of people are excited for, including myself. On top of that, we have a few locations spoiled to us, being Wakanda, the lands of the Black Panther, the Sanctum Sanctorum, the stronghold of Doctor Strange, and the Hellfire Gala, which Magneto is strongly connected to because of the Hellfire Club he was a leader of. And if that is in the indication of upcoming characters, if Magneto, who we are getting, is strongly connected to this stage, then that gives us a strong indication that we are not only getting Doctor Strange, but potentially the Black Panther as well, which we will factor into our team roster. So let's dive straight into that. We're going to get all the easy ones out of the way, just like every other video, starting with the Avengers. Iron Man. Good. Now, who else goes here? Well, now that we have potential information that Scarlet Witch is in the game, she probably goes here with the Avengers. This is the most likely due to her being strongly associated with them in the films, although that is less the case now thanks to Multiverse of Madness and the craziness that went on there. And if that is the case, then she most likely would end up here, but I think she's probably going to be a part of the Avengers. She could technically go here if they're doing a Defenders type team, but I think they're going to stick to being a bit more street level here, and she's a bit too overpowered to be in this lineup if that's what they're going with. So I think she fits in here, but because of Doctor Strange being in the game and him most likely being a part of the Ghost Rider team, I don't see them doubling up on like Mystic related characters, just because they probably want the teams to have more variety. I mean, they could do it. It's a possibility, so she could end up here. I mean, she could be here as a villain, but I don't think that's the case. Because of the theme, I believe the Doctor Doom team is going for. So, most likely spots is either with Spider-Man or the Avengers, but we're going to keep her with the Avengers for now. Now, who's the last member of the Avengers? Well, it's a strong possibility that Miss Marvel is the last member. Now, this would be rather disappointing because it would mean that we only get one new character revealed for the Avengers team because Cap, Iron Man, and Miss Marvel are already in the game. Which wouldn't make for that exciting of a trailer. It's like, ooh, Cap, Iron Man, Miss Marvel doing stuff, and then you get Scarlet Witch. Cool. Reveal's done, trailer's over. Nothing too exciting. I mean, Scarlet Witch is pretty hype, but her being the only new addition doesn't make for a very exciting reveal. But there is a case for Miss Marvel to be here, and that is because of an interaction she has with Captain America in the game, which we will take a quick look at. Now, here we have the interaction between Miss Marvel and Captain America, courtesy of Legacy of Kaiser's channel. Go check out their channel. They got some cool stuff on there. In any case, this is the interaction we have. We got Miss Marvel saying, "I'm up against Cap. What to do? I'm getting all nervous." Cap responds, "Don't worry, trust your training. Show me." Now, that could mean that Miss Marvel is indeed a part of the Avengers because Cap is referencing time they've spent training, which would mean she was a part of the team if he's saying to trust her training. However, she could have recently finished her training and joined up with Spider-Man, which is the direction I hope they're going. But if not, then she's most likely gonna be here on the Avengers team. But if they are going the more street level thing with the Spider-Man team, she'll probably end up here. But then, who goes here? Well, a good guess is Thor. He's a pretty solid one to go for, especially since the Avengers statue you get on one of the stages has these three all together. But what if some of the lore, kind of like with the X-Men, indicates that Thor is currently busy and dealing with some other stuff? Maybe he had to go back to Asgard to deal with some things going on there. But then who would be the remaining member of the Avengers? Now, there's a few fun things they could do with this. One guess of mine is the Wasp. because she's referenced on one of the stages having a building with the Van Dyne name on it. Not only that, she adds a unique playstyle, having the shrinking and growing, very much like Ant-Man. So you get a character who is reminiscent of Ant-Man and is also another female body, because we know Japan loves their waifus. Which is why one of my guesses later for the Ghost Rider team is also a female character. However, another wild one, because the devs did say surprises, which could mean they could throw... Actually, no, I don't think she would be put on the Avengers. Never mind. Well, I mean, she has been part of the Avengers before, but she's a bit more street level-y, so I think she would probably go here, being like a new Avenger or like Defender type character. And that character I'm talking about is Squirrel Girl. I don't think she's really going to end up here, but my reasoning for her being in the game at all stems from Arc System Works having a similar character. That being the squirrel character known as Makoto Nanaya. And it would be a cool way to give BlazBlue kind of a nod in the game, having another squirrel-like character. But I feel if she was in the game, she'd probably be here because she's a bit more street level. But more on that in a bit. Another Avengers pick could be the Hulk as the remaining character if Thor happens to be busy. However, Hulk could also go here if they're going the more Defenders route. But then you're starting to power scale a little too high for street level. Maybe not. Spider-Man's still a relatively powerful character. So you could have him there, which would mean my final picks for this would either be Janet Van Dyne, if Thor is busy, or just having Thor here. And then they could throw a curveball and have Hulk end up here too, instead of Janet or Thor. So for now, I'm going to keep it with Janet there. But we have indicated that Thor or Hulk could also end up here as potential final picks. Now for our Spider-Man team. Now, if they're going the more Defenders route or just like street level, then I think we're getting Daredevil. Because we've had indication that stages have had indication for characters, especially with the Hellfire Gala being a reference to Magneto if he is indeed in the game. And us also getting that, potentially getting that stage. And since Daredevil appears on the New York stage, there's a strong chance that he could be in the game. And before you're like, oh, but he's in the background. Yo, Storm shows up on the X-Men stage in the background sometimes, and she's one of the base characters of the game. So just because you're in the background doesn't mean you ain't going to be in the game. Which is pretty hopeful, because Gambit and Rogue also show up in the background of the X-Men stage, so we could potentially be seeing them in the future. Most likely as DLC, because people will pay money for that. I know I would. In any case, I think our last Spider-Man team character will be a version of Venom. They could go with Agent Venom, since that version of Venom hasn't really been utilized much in games. It's still a version of Venom, so you still get the symbiote powers, but it's not classic Venom. So it's a way to give us Venom while also giving us a unique take on him. But I could see classic Venom being interchangeable with Agent Venom. But I think that's kind of how our Spider-Man team is going to shape up. Something like this. But let's say Miss Marvel ends up here. Who's our last member of the Defenders type street level team? I think in this case you either give us Squirrel Girl because of the nod to Makoto and having cool squirrel mechanics by summoning squirrels onto the battlefield and having them do crazy shit. Or, yes, most likely that, because I don't think they would give us a third Spider-Man character like Black Cat. They might save her for later. So if they were to do another character, because of his connection to Shi'ar technology and stuff, Darkhawk could be a cool, interesting pick, especially since He's not that well known, and he would be one of those surprises that the devs were talking about, as well as having unique mechanics, being a flight type of character who also has Shi'ar technology. But because Danger says she's the last of Shi'ar technology, it makes me feel like Darkhawk won't be there, and we'll end up having Miss Marvel down here after all, which is what I hope they do. That way each team gets at least 2 or more reveals. Let's put Wasp up here just in case. Alright, the Ghost Rider team. Now, like everybody else, I also think they're going the way of the Midnight Suns, especially since the Sanctum Sanctorum was one of the potentially spoiled stages, and Doctor Strange potentially being a character in the game because of that. The Midnight Suns feels highly likely. So who else would go here? Well, Blade, obviously. Almost everybody picks Blade here for good reason. We all want to see Blade in this bloody game. Me especially. I want to play this man so bad. I mean, he's our Marvel Dante. Bro's got throwing weapons, swords, guns, all kinds of cool, crazy vampire hunting tech. Who wouldn't want to play as that? And since he hasn't really been in other games as a fighting game character, not only would he be a big surprise, but you could also consider him a face of Marvel on top of that. So he checks a lot of the boxes that the devs indicate for us in their interviews. So, and if you don't put him in this game, missed opportunity. And not as DLC. This man will sell copies of the game if he's part of the base roster, believe me. I mean, he'd be one of the reasons I buy the game. Even though they already got quite a few characters in there, I'm pretty hyped to play like magic. But who's our last character for the Ghost Rider team? Well, we need another waifu, obviously. So my final guess is Elsa Bloodstone. And that's because she's a gun-wielding character. Purely gun-wielding character. I think she has some other variations of power. She also has a little bit of magic, I believe, if I remember correctly, powered by a necklace she has. But also dual-wielding guns. Now, another reason I'm picking this is because she also could be a nod to not only a BlazBlue character like Noelle Vermillion, who was known for dual-wielding guns. You also have other Arxis characters who wield guns like Elfelt and Happy Chaos. And since Arxis loves their gun-toting characters, and Japan loves their waifus, I think Elsa Bloodstone is a slam dunk choice. Not only would she be a surprise, and a character who hasn't really been in fighting games, but she's gained slightly more popularity thanks to Marvel Rivals, very much like Magic. Even though this was already in development prior to Marvel Rivals being released, it lines up pretty well with Marvel Rivals anyway, especially if they were given heads up by Marvel of what they were doing with Marvel Rivals during the process. So like I said, slam dunk choice. Gun wielding, unique playstyle, female character, and kind of rounds out the team, giving it a really unique feel and vibe. And now the team everybody's been waiting for. And because of the indicator of heroes and villains working together, I'm sorry, you're not getting a full villain team with Doctor Doom. I'm like 95% sure Star-Lord goes here, for a couple of good reasons. A couple of them being comic related, on top of the theme I believe they're going for here. First, Star-Lord is part of what team that people know him for the most? The Guardians of the Galaxy. Guess who else has been a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, even if it was for a brief time? That's right, Doctor Doom. Already one connection between Star-Lord and Doctor Doom. Connection 2. They've both been a part of the Galactic Council, which was an organization of people who gather together to discuss issues going on in the universe. Star-Lord representing the Shakir Empire, and of course, Dr. Doom representing Earth, and of course his country of Latveria. That's already 2 comic book connections and teams or groups they have been a part of together. That already makes it difficult to say Star-Lord could go anywhere else but with Dr. Doom with already those 2 connections. And the third being the theme I think they're going for with this team, which is rulers. And that's because one of our potential spoilers, Magneto, being the ruler of Krakoa, the mutant nation. So we've got the ruler of Latveria, the ruler of the Shakir Empire, and the ruler of Krakoa, the mutant nation. So if we maintain this theme of rulers, who else can go here? Well, we have a couple of characters I think could be the most likely candidates. One being Namor, if you wanted to lean more towards the villain side of things, even though he's more of a hero nowadays, he kind of rides the balance of once being a villain, but more being a hero these days. And he is the ruler of Atlantis. But because of Wakanda being one of the stages that was potentially spoiled with what I showed you earlier, that would mean our last ruler would most likely be T'Challa, also known as the Black Panther, the ruler of Wakanda. All very powerful nations / empires that exist. And if the theme of rulers is indeed what they're aiming for, which would make the most sense, since all of these characters do rule over things, including Namor, who is a potential pick here, that is most likely what they're doing with the Doctor Doom team. Sorry to burst your bubble, people, but Star-Lord makes the most sense with Doctor Doom. And I gave you solid reasons why. Both being members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and also both being members of the Galactic Council, on top of the theme of rulers we're kind of getting here with Magneto being thrown into the mix. So this team's theme is probably Great Rulers. So the team name will probably be something to do with rulers or kings or something like that. And that's how I believe our roster will shape up. Corner, taking place around March 20th to the 23rd, I believe, potentially the 22nd, in Seoul, Korea. There's a strong chance we're also getting another reveal trailer of characters and potentially stages during that World Tour event in Seoul, Korea. A good indicator of this is because a new build of the Marvel Tokon game will be available for play there, with Magic, Danger, and Wolverine being characters you can now test out. So if you're going to be in Seoul, Korea at the ARC World Tour Finals, you're probably in for a treat getting to test out those characters, as well as potentially a reveal trailer for some new characters, hopefully solidifying if these leaks are true or false. So in a few weeks, as of the recording of this video, we will soon find out. Plus, we get to also look forward to some more information being revealed for Guilty Gear 2.0. And if they're going to be showing that, I think Marvel Tokon is a strong candidate for being shown off there as well, with some new reveals. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below, and if you think some of these lineups might be a little different than what I was indicating, but hopefully with the information we went over, we're one step closer to figuring out what this roster is actually going to look like. Give me your picks down below, and let me know what you think of my picks. With that said, Mr. Howery out.